Okay, so I've been getting on with the cockpit, and we're just getting to the point now where we can add the parts from the Edward sheet, which are here, and they're all the coloured parts. So there's just placards and instrument panel faces and the like, which just go straight on once you've got all the painting finished. So I did paint in the wires here that are moulded in, and all of my reference says that it's sort of a brass tubing, so I've used this colour here from Tamiya just to paint that in. I did manage to keep it quite clean. It's gone over a little bit, but if you do get a problem with it, you know, going all around, generally if it's just a little bit, you can hide that with the wash that's about to go, because you'll get a black line next to it so it defines it, so you don't need to worry too much. You just need to get the highlights of it. And the paint's gone down very well as far as the interior green, so we use Mr. Colour, the 364. It's Mr. Colour 364 from the interior set, so quite pleased with that. It's got a kind of nice sort of satin sheen to it, so I should be able to do the weathering straight onto it, especially that being the lacquer. So that's two cockpit side walls. Then I've just got the control stick there, and I've tried to pick out the wires, painted the handle, and then that's just again basic stuff ready for the Edward stuff to go on. I do need to pick out, there's some wires here running down there, so I'll pick those up, but the rest of this is just sort of blocking in colours really. It's nothing special, just showing you where I've been picking out the black. I did mask and spray out the canopy sections just as I was getting the interior colour out, so that's just an Edward set, nothing special to this at all. There was no extra cutting needed. They went on very well, so that's given them a nice strong coat, and then it shows the interior colour from the inside, and that's about it really. There's just the instrument panel, which is obviously the main piece. So I've used PVA glue there just to make the dials look like they've got glass in there, and then I've got a bit of PVA glue drying there for the compass to give it a glass look. And that frame there as well, I think this is probably one of the most impressive pieces as well, where it's got the drilled holes, and it's the compass holder. Just gives it a little bit more detail. I must remember to paint these wires in here, and I've just stuck the seat together. So that's this is all the kit part. That's a lovely little section here. It's got very fine points for joining the chair on, just like the actual chair does. I have noticed that I've got the seat belts and they go through this part here, and I've had to cut that out, so that was a little bit annoying. It would have been better to do that before painting, but there you go. So the seat belts thread through there and go back to the bulkhead behind that. So next up, oil washes. So we do have a little fit issue, which this kit's known for, the Mark V, with this section here. So you've got two different options. You do have, let me just check. You've got part B16 or D33. Now, the one I'm using, I think, is D33. That's what this section is. There's two different types of this. This is the cover that goes over the fuel tank. This is the one that gives you problems. So I did a lot of test fitting at the start and sanded a lot of this back here and was getting a very good fit. Now everything's come together. It's a little bit, it's a little bit of a test again, because we've obviously got the Edward instrument panel there that's slightly gone on, not quite square, so that's caused me a bit of an issue. And if you notice, if you put it on like that, you get a bit of a gap there, whereas it's meant to be sort of flush here and obviously there. Now you can push that down, and if you push up on the bottom there as well, and we bring that together, we start to get a very tight join. So you'd need to clamp all that together and you'd glue it in, and it should be fine. But I have just sort of, I've been moving a little bit, moving the instrument panel a little bit. You can, one of the fixes I saw on the internet is gluing the back piece in here, so glue this all tight and flush up here, let that dry, and then when you clamp this down, glue that down, and then leaving this front piece, this front part here, not glued, you'll slightly sort of you'll be able to slightly just move it down like that. And then once the part is on here and sitting flush, then you can push that up, and then you're talking probably a point of a mil or something like that on the inside that you're never going to see. So that might be the best way to do this, but I'm unsure. So you'll have to work through this in your own way if you get to this part, if you're building this kit, but it's just something to look out for and something to be aware of, that this part needs to be fettled in. Also, we've got the light that sits in the bottom of the wing here as well. That is meant to go into this hole in the bottom of the cockpit, and it does, but you've got to enlarge that hole and sand this back a little bit, because that's got to go in flush, and now it will go in how it's meant to, which is like that, I believe. So that'll be sitting through the bottom of the cockpit. Again, you could just cut that off, because there's actually no way to see the interior part of that light. When you've got the cockpit section out, you can see through the back and you can see under the seat, but not when it's in there. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep over that. I probably will paint that, because now it does all fit, as you can see. Goes in flush there, sits in flush there when it's all brought together, so it's not causing an issue. But that's the other bit that I've seen. The rest of the build is meant to be pretty straightforward, so we'll carry on from here. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the cockpit together now, and the fuselage together, sorry, and the cockpit's inside, and there's quite a lot to be seen there, so I'm quite happy. You're going to be able to see pretty much all of it. Now we do have some fit issues, and I knew this going into it. I did sort of mention them slightly before. It's just trying to get this fuel tank down. Now, this filler makes it look worse than it is. This is only the plastic putty, so I mean it almost rubs off with water. I just like to get it on there as a precaution, then I can sand it back through. My main concern is keeping these rivets, because I haven't got a punch and die set, and it's going to be a bit of a pain to make those small bits, but I am going to have to do a couple, I think. And we're going to have to rescribe the fuel filler cap here. But I think we're pretty much there. As soon as I sand this back, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay. So then we've got a bit of sanding underneath here, and on the back there on the spine of the aircraft, and that's all quite normal. Then it's jumping to the wing join, so it's quite a good join there, as you get that part of the fuselage goes in between the undercarriage section there that we've got. That's quite a nice strong join, and when that's pulled in, I mean there's a gap, but it's a good join. There you go, it should mate in quite nicely. So, I mean that's, you can't ask for much more than that. And then we need to tape up the front as well, and then that'll all be okay. So I'm probably going to glue this section on first, get that all sorted, and then bring the upper parts of the wing on and join them in once we're all secure. Test fitting all the way obviously, but it looks like we should get quite a good join in there as well. So here's to hoping. So I'm going to sand all this back now, get that joined together, and then we'll move on to the next step. So believe it or not, this is the main parts left on this build now. So this is everything set out. I'm going to leave these parts. So we've got the aerial mast, the pitot tube, and some small hooks to go on the underneath. I'm going to spray all of those on the sprue, and then I've got them fixed at the connecting point. So I've gone round and just taken the burr off with a knife, and then the connecting point is what goes into the plastic on the underneath. I've cleaned all these parts up. So this here makes up the tailplane section. So you've got the rudder, the horizontal stabilizers, and the elevators. I'm going to position the elevators. These are positionable. Just going to position them slightly down like that. I'm thinking on that. I could have adjusted the control stick. I might leave them straight with that in mind. Not that I don't think many people are going to worry, but anyway, that I'll make a decision on that. But you can position them if you want. So that's that whole section. I've been making the other parts as well. Now I don't know which is which here, but one of these is an oil cooler and the other one is an air intake, I believe. So I'm imagining that's the oil cooler and that's the air intake. These fit quite well. So you have grill sections to go on the underneath, and then you've got a scoop under the wing to give you the point of where it fixes, and if you push it quite well it goes in nicely. So I've been test fitting those, making sure that once the grills are in that they're actually going to fit. And this piece here has actual cutouts, so it doesn't go right down until you push it, and then it clips in like that, and it will actually stay in, but it's going to need to be held down a little bit while it dries. I've got the ailerons on. Now these haven't got a lot of detail at all, but I'm not a Spitfire buff, and I'm pretty sure that these Spitfires had metal ailerons, so therefore perhaps there shouldn't be any ribbing detail or anything, but they're completely smooth on the underneath. No marks at all there, and on the top there's hardly anything, and they've got a strange sort of slant cutout area there. But anyway, that's the only ones in the kit, so the reviews on this kit are very good, so I'm assuming they're exactly what they're meant to be, but who knows. As you can see, I've filled the gaps on the wing root. A lot worse on this side than this side. This was fine, don't know why, but that was the best I could get it. Then we've got the cutouts here for the guns, and I'm going to be adding these resin points there for the and metal cannons from Mazda company here, and hopefully they fit in quite nice, but you know, with resin aftermarket I may have to fettle those in a little bit. So that's how we are. The air scoop, I've left this before, sorry, the top filter, the Vokes filter here, I've fit it in, and it's a two-piece construction, so you bring the two together. There's, you know, a little bit of a seam line, but you can't do much about that. It just about fits. There's a bit of a gap here, because it's typical Airfix again. They're almost sort of too far ahead of themselves, if that makes sense. They haven't quite got the engineering capability to produce a kit to do the things that they've designed for, if that makes sense. That's the problem I had with the Cockpit. Everything's in there, tons of detail, that's absolutely fantastic, but if Tamiya were to have done it, it would have fit perfectly, whereas this, you know, there's a lot of messing about to get it in there. And same is for all of this, really. I mean, the top filter doesn't go in that well. It just doesn't quite fit because the way that the plastic's moulded, it sort of fades away at the end. So you've got mismoulds and a few sink marks, and that's causing a problem fit here. However, this area, which is pretty poor gap, I mean, there's no excusing that. It's as far back as where it's meant to be in this cut-out slot. So I've made that, you know, I've got the gap here, so it's not there. So again, no problem really. It's going to fill easy enough, and that shouldn't be a problem. I might put a little bit of plasticard in there, just in that quite wide gap. But it is a pain, and it's, you know, maybe they could have done. Maybe they could have done it in a different way, having that as one piece, and then you wouldn't have had to have the join there, for instance. But nevertheless, we'll persevere. The join here, that's gone down pretty smooth now. Can't really feel it, but I won't be able to tell until we get a primer coat on. And yeah, so the wings are on. We're not very far away. So as I was saying, everything you see here is all that's left to go before we complete the build. So we've got the weight on wheel tyres there, which are a nice one piece, no tread detail, so we'll just sand that seam line back and that'll be fine. I've got the hubs here that I've just test fit. I've just checked that there's no proper position they're meant to be in, but I'm almost certain there isn't. The undercarriage legs might be a bit of a problem because you've got this this fit here. We've got one of these joints, I forget this is going back to my old woodworking days. That's a certain type of joint, so we've got the same shape there together like that, so it gives it a larger surface area to join. However, I don't know if I'm going to trust that. I might put a bit of brass tube in there just to firm things up, and then it's getting it sat at the right angle, but that's going to be once everything's painted, so we're not going to need to worry about that just yet. And yeah, so we've got the prop assembly here as well. So this is all the parts apart from the actual propeller. I've just noticed I haven't cut that out, and I've lost some of the, I said earlier, some of these rivet details around the front here. It's fasteners, I've come to realise. Large bits of raised detail all around the engine cowling here. They're fasteners, and I've lost a couple in the sanding process. So there's a couple to go on here. They're simple enough. If you had a punch and die set, which I don't have, you could just punch a disc out of the right size, glue it on, drill a hole, job done. I'm going to cut them off of this part, which is the other, if you're not doing the top filter, that goes on there. So I've got a couple I can take off of that. So I'm going to slice them off and glue them on. And hopefully no one will be any the wiser. And I've lost a couple on the top filter here, so I'll just put one back there and one back there. You might be able to see here what I'm talking about, the roughness of the sort of moulding. I mean, it's just all kind of fades into nowhere. There's no crispness. You've got a nice crisp line all around here, and then this bit's all just kind of, I don't know, rough, poorly refined. But that's Airfix. We all know it going into it. We've just got to work with it. So I'll stick all these bits together now on camera, and then we'll be into the primer stage. Right, well that didn't work. The resin inserts for the machine guns did not fit whatsoever, and I thought I could sort of sand them back, but that wasn't the case. So what I'm going to do is I've cut the barrels off of the kit ones here, because the main issue, I mean I smoothed them in, but the main issue was this, well I don't know what to describe it, the sort of way it comes out of the gun root there. There's sort of no, but part of the barrel is in the root, so it's not just a case of sticking a tube on the end and it will fit. So what I'm going to do is glue those in, drill a hole, and then the new barrels will be taken into the kit parts. Would have been better if I'd done that first time round, but this is how you learn. Okay, well, after sorting out a few little areas on this build, I think we're finally ready now to start thinking about paint. I have just fettled in the cannons here. These have been a terrible fit, which is unusual for master barrels. I don't know what the issue was. So, you know, we have had problems. I showed you about using their fairings, which didn't fit at all in here, so I've gone back to using the kit parts, then cut off the barrels to leave an area where I can insert the metal barrels, which I've done. Obviously that wouldn't have fitted brilliantly, and it didn't, so I used quite a lot of super glue, and I've just sort of blended those in now. I think they're looking okay. Once I get the first bit of paint on, I'll know, I'll have a better idea, but I think they look okay. And then I've just straightened them up by eye, and you know, as long as they're pointing forwards, which they are, and they're level when in flight, then that's all we really need to worry about, and they seem okay to me. So that's the airframe now done. Cockpit is masked off. I have attached the rear piece of the canopy there. I'm not sure what that would be called, but that's the fixed bit of glass behind the pilot. Then we've got the domed canopy, which is the moving part, and then we've got the windscreen. I do tend to fix the windscreens, but in this case I'm not, so I've got it masked off up to there, and then I'll add that on afterwards. As far as the paint scheme, there's a little bit of interest in this, so it's not just the bog standard stuff. We've got a sort of, it's almost like a mix of the two, so you've got ocean grey and the dark earth over sky. Now this was an aircraft that arrived in the sort of in the desert scheme without azure blue, so it was mid-stone and dark earth over sky, and then on Malta it was overpainted with a hand mixed grey, so a sort of dark grey. So what I'm going to use is, I've seen there is a picture of this aircraft as well, which does look a little bit like that, dark grey. So I'm going to use straight from the bottle this IJN grey, which is XF77 here from Tamiya, which I used on the Sea Fury build, and it's quite good for a kind of a lighter dark sea grey. So if you think of the Fleet Air Arm colours, it's a lighter version of the extra dark sea grey. So that looks the part actually. So I'm going to use that as the grey, and what I've decided to do is paint the whole of the underside sky, which I will be using Mr. Colour Duck Egg Green. We'll see how that goes on, and then I might lighten it if it doesn't look quite right by going over with another pass. I was going to use Tamiya Sky, but it's not quite the right shade. This looks more like it, to be honest. I've got a few other similar colours, so I can certainly get somewhere near the RAF Sky colour, which is always a difficult colour to try and replicate. So we've got that going on, and then I'm going to go all over the top with the extra dark sea grey, XF77 with the dark colour, And then I've got MRP's Dark Earth, so I'll mask over the grey and then apply the Dark Earth over the top, and that should give us a little bit of sort of contrast. Using the lighter brown over the dark colour, it will almost be like doing a pre-shade, so I don't need to worry about trying to get some definition going. And that will complete that. That's all we're really looking at, and then we're on to decals. So I've got all of the assemblies ready here. We've got the propeller here, which is gone together okay. As often is the case, the back plate and the nose cone, there's a little bit of a lip there, but you can't do much about that. I think it looks fine to me. There is sort of, I don't know how you describe it, sink marks I suppose around the nose here. But I actually like that because it gives the impression of, it actually looks very realistic, I would say, of sort of dented metal. Whenever you look at these planes, they're never smooth. In fact, they're quite the opposite. They're surprisingly bumpy. So I'm going to leave that, and hopefully I can kind of use some oils to kind of highlight that. And as you can see, it goes on no problem. The back plate fits quite well there, so there's no shape issues, and that automatically makes it look very much like a Spitfire. So that's quite good. So all we're doing there is black and yellow tips. Then I've got a few of the other areas here. All the undercarriage and wheel wells is aluminium, so I'll probably do all the painting first and then swap it over and do the aluminium. Same with the wheels, the hubs there are aluminium. We've got the exhausts as well that you might have seen me cutting off the blocks. These are resin, brass and exhausts, so they're going to be painted separately and weathered up, and they'll be put in towards the end of the build. And yeah, so that's pretty much about it. I'm going to attach the tail wheel because it's quite a good dry fit, so that just goes straight in like that. So I'm just going to have that in there while I paint the sky and then pull it out again. So that will get that painted, and that's pretty much it. So I don't tend to film the painting because you see it a million times over and it's pretty difficult for the spray boost. So we'll recap once I've got the sky and the dark grey colour on, and probably show a bit of the masking. So you've just seen me applying this, and it's just, I thought I'd point this out here. It can be a little bit tricky when you're doing this, so I've obviously sprayed the dark grey. And you need to bear in mind that everywhere this white tack is also going to stay dark grey. So I tend to sort of mask, I'll do the blue tack as if I'm masking off this bit. So if you were to do that, for instance, you'd have your tack go all around here, and it would have that shape. But the problem with that is that would mean that would just be this interior part, and then if you're then going to mask this part off, you spray your dark brown that we're going to put on, dark earth, and as you peel this away, you're then sort of a few mil wider than you think you are. So you've got to allow for that. So I'm just sort of using this on the, I don't know what that is, gun fairing I suppose, or not fairing, it's the bulges from the machine gun I think. We can see it just runs off the bottom of the tip there, so really using that as my guide, I kind of just want the tip covered with the white tack, and then as we've sort of got a squiggly line all the way around, we're just sort of skimming past that panel, so it's a little bit out to be honest. We can actually use this panel line here, which is more correct. So if we just have the white tack just running along there, and then pretty much coming down where this panel line is, maybe a little bit across. I'm not going to go too mad as long as the shape's correct, because it is obviously the RAF shape. I think it's the B scheme actually, because this bit's over here. But nevertheless, we won't get bogged down in that. It does need to be this shape, so I do need to try and be a little bit correct as far as where the areas are, but I'm not going to worry about the edges being exactly like the diagram is what I'm trying to say. So I would say that would be perfect for this area here, and then we're going to cover this in masking tape and so on. So I'm going to now go ahead and do the next bit, and you'll see a little bit of it on film, but I won't bore you to tears watching me do the whole lot, and then we'll be ready to spray the dark earth colour. Now the paint is obviously dry, and I've put a gloss coat over this as well, using Mr. Colour GX Super Clear Free. And my main concern now is that certainly on camera it's a lot darker anyway in person than in person, but that dark earth is from MRP and it's quite dark, and I would hesitate to say that that's the colour that dark earth should be. However, you know, I know that's a difficult thing to decide on anyway. But with all that said, I'm going to be lightening these colours anyway when we get into the oils. I do apologise for the lighting. It's not, I'm looking at the screen now and it doesn't look anything like this. I think the blue is soaking out some of the colour, so it is a lot lighter, so just imagine that. I'm hoping that as soon as we get into the weathering, well, I will do, I'll be bringing those colours up quite a bit and lightening them with a few different washes and fading effects and so on. Propeller went on okay. It's kind of stuck there and sort of spins. I didn't really intend for it to spin, but it does spin. That's not a bad thing, because it takes a knock now. And I did simulate, which it does say in the instructions, and you can sort of see in the picture of this aircraft, that there was a little bit of overspray, because this grey colour was painted over the traditional midstone desert scheme in Malta, so it's a hand mixed sort of colour, hence why I've just picked this sort of purpley grey colour. It's a kind of dark grey from Tamiya, and it oversprays onto the sky colour, so I've just simulated that in places as per the instructions. So I think that looks okay like that. It sort of gives the idea. I've kind of done it a little bit over the top, because if you just did it subtly, it would almost look like you've it would look like you were not trying to do it, if that makes sense. So when you're trying to bring mistakes that are actually in photographs and stuff into your model, you need to kind of do it confidently, otherwise it just looks like a mistake to the average Joe who doesn't know anything about the subject. So anyway, now the gloss coat's dry, all the components are attached apart from the few last bits that will go on after the weathering's complete. So now we'll get into the decals. Okay, so just checking in now, and obviously this is the start of the second part of this video, and you can see we've moved on a little bit from where we left off in the first part, and that's mainly just with the decals. And I decided not to film me putting the decals down, because it's no different to any other aircraft I've done with as far as decaling is concerned, and these have gone down fine, and it's just a lot of repetitive techniques. So I thought it would be easy enough just to explain it, and then we can run straight on into the weathering, and that should probably be the end of the talking until the video comes to an end. So should wrap things up a bit easier in this one. So just looking at what's happened here. So the decals have obviously gone on, and now I've also put a coat of GX 100. I think it is from Super Clear Free from Guns or Mr. Hobby. And that's sealed these in now, so I have had a little bit of trouble just getting them to bed right down into the panel lines. And if I zoom into this roundel here, it should explain what I'm talking about. So hopefully there now you can see that we're right into the panel lines here. And how I got to this actual final part, I couldn't just get there just using micro sol, which is the usual thing I go for. So when all else fails, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't got anything stronger. I do use Tamiya X20A straight, but I don't find it does much more than microsol. I run through with a pin, the tip of a pin here, which is just your ordinary sewing pin, and I just follow the panel lines in and just run through. So if I do this, I should put a blob of blue tack or something on there. So I just run through the roundel like that with the panel line, and I find that finally sticks the decal into the panel line. And then when you then do a gloss coat, or in this case the next coat will be a matte coat, that then holds it in there. What I did find is, as I was doing this, I'm also doing the Aero Cobra along with this, those decals stuck a lot better, whereas when I was pulling through here, I was noticing instead of the decal just being cut and pushed into the panel lines, it was actually sort of flapping a bit, and that showed that I haven't got it stuck down very well. So I did put some micro set on to try and get the adhesion a little bit better, but then that was actually fixed by putting on the gloss coat, which then beds the decal down, so it's held down, and then I've just gone through it now while the gloss coat's dry, and that's held it in there. So now we can go on with the oil washes. They should run straight through the panel and cut through the roundel like they actually would, or well, like we want them to anyway. It's good for a modelling effect, and that should give the desired effect that I'm looking for. So here you can see the brown's a bit lighter in this video now. Actually, that is what it looks like, so it's not quite as dark as it came across in the previous video. This is all one section as a decal here, but the carrier film's cut out from the H, which is quite nice. So they've gone on alright. And all in all, everything's gone together pretty well. The stencil data, it's not too much of it, and it's not exhaustive. There's quite a bit goes on the underside here in the form of these logos here. I'm not sure what they are. They seem to be telling you about moving parts for flaps and elevators and all the rest of it, ailerons. And then on the top we just got the walk lines, no walk lines even. However, they don't really fit. They're in the place they're meant to go, but they don't quite fit, but I've just gone with it. I'm not worrying too much about it. So now we're going to run on with oils, and in the gloss stage, which is this is at, I'm going to pretty much just do panel line washes and try and probably leave it at panel line washes. I might try one or two other type washes. Then we'll get the matte coat on, as well as on the canopy, and then I'll unmask the canopy, maybe even fix it in position depending on how things go, and then we'll get into the proper weathering. So we'll be using neat oils to try and lighten some of these colours and fade them. We'll be using dust washes to show that, obviously, I don't know how dusty Malta is, but we're going to give it a kind of dusty feel. And then work through with pigments from the underside and through the top, and that should bring this build to a finish. you've just seen me in the previous steps there applying just general oils neat onto the airframe, just to try and create a bit of there's a few things going on there. So we've got a kind of filter happening, we've got a bit of tonal variation, a bit of sort of dust effects starting to creep in. Hopefully, I don't know if it came across, and I do struggle with the light, and the colour does come across a little bit different. I do need to work out these camera settings, but the brown has come up quite a lot. I hope it's noticeable, and I think it is, even on the camera. So what I used there was burnt sienna. It's also another thing to note with these oils. It's amazing what the different colours will do. I wouldn't initially have gone for burnt sienna. I would have said this is burnt sienna down here, which is obviously quite sort of rusty brown. But that has had the effect of bringing the colour up. So it is, you just got to experiment a little bit. So overall, I've got a little bit of texture, and I say that not meaning real actual texture, but it gives the look, it gives the feel of whenever you look at aircraft, certainly in dusty conditions, you'll see that they're dusty on the airframe, and then where there's been handprints and lots of foot traffic and stuff, there's smears, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I mean, down here there's sort of wear marks a little bit. Again, I don't know how, this will probably be better. Let's go in a bit. So down along here, I've done a bit of wear. Instead of chipping, which I don't tend to like to do, you don't see an awful lot of it on these type of aircraft, shall we say. I've sort of gone for more browns to try and kind of show that it's worn the colour and changed it, as opposed to it actually being mud on there or anything. It's just, you've broken it up. Obviously, when you've got a matte finish or a matte colour or something that's dusty, if you see it on cars or anything, dusty cars, as soon as you sort of start rubbing it, there's a bit of a shine and a patina that comes across. So that's all I'm trying to do. There's no right or wrong in this, it's just trying to give it the look I'm after. So I thought, I've still got these oils, these have actually been here for a couple of days, but I'm sure I can liven them up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. You can't see this on camera, but I've just livened up a very dry burnt sienna. I always put my oils on kitchen towel here, and that leaches off the carrier, which I've forgotten what it's called at the minute, but there's an oil that it's carried in. It doesn't really matter what it's called. Whatever that is, you want to leach that out because it takes a bit of time to dry. What it can do anyway. So I just kind of, all I'm doing here, I thought I'd just talk you through as I'm doing this instead of speeding it up. You can't go wrong. You can't add too much. You can't overdo it, because if you feel like you don't like what you've got, you can either work it into the larger airframe, go into the grey and stuff, or you can just wipe it off with thinners. So that's the one good thing with oils. And it pays not to be too aggressive, because they can also sort of bead up and roll off as a kind of a bit like PVA does, I suppose. I've had that as well. So like I would go really rough like that, but if you go too hard, you'll work through the oil and go back to the glossy coat. So you just kind of I'm just kind of emulating actual wear. So all these brush strokes are sort of where people are scuffing and hand marks and all the rest of it. You obviously notice I've unmasked the canopy, which there wasn't really any need to show. It's all gone very well. I've glued the canopy on the windscreen and the rear part. This is off. I should actually take that off. That rear section there was glued in and masked up and painted, and then when I undid it, there was some marks on the inside of it, which actually prevent you from seeing. There's a little bit of detail in there. So that was put on with Tamiya Extra Thin, but I just used a bit of extra Tamiya Extra Thin to run across the seam, and then just eased it off because it's only a tiny amount. And then I could clean it, and I've glued it back on. That's not been a problem. I do need to get the aerial masked on here because I've actually forgotten to gloss that or anything. So that needs to go on. Part of this stage, really. I might, let's see, in fact, might be able to just put that in by friction if it's a tight fit, and then that bit here has a piece of glass going in there, so I think right at the end I'll paint that silver, hoping for a perfect fit from Airfix, which, so it sort of went in there. It's just pushed in, it's not at the right angle, but that doesn't matter for this stage. It's just so it gets hit with the same weathering. I'm getting a bit of silvering going on here, which I've tried to fix. I've tried to slice through it, cut a little bit off, get a bit of micro set under there, try and get it to go back down, but if all else fails I'll probably just gloss underneath it, because I did have, as I was putting the gloss coat on, I saw a bit of silvering, so I cut the decal and went over heavy with the gloss, and I saw that it sunk in there. So as long as I get a bit of something underneath there to take that colour out, that will help. Getting a bit carried away here, I just put too much on the wing there, but as I say, again I say with oils, they're very, very forgiving. They just tend to blend like that did there. So the idea here is hopefully is pretty self-explanatory. The idea is to go over this airframe as much as you want with different varying colours of oil until you see the effect that you want. Now I'm getting there. I must admit the panel line wash went on fantastically, and I haven't done it like that before, and that's how I've wanted to do it. That was with quite a heavy pigmented oil mixed with thinners of raw umber mixed with black. So I didn't want it to be black. At the same time I didn't really want it to be brown, so I just darkened an already dark brown, and that's given a very nice effect there. It doesn't make them too bold, but at the same time they stand out. But they're in line with the general tone of the rest of the aircraft. So it cuts through the greys as well as it does through the brown, which is what I wanted. And I don't like to go too heavy on the panel lines, because often you can't actually see them anyway on real aircraft. So I want them because it improves the look of the aircraft, whether it's right or wrong. But again, I don't want them to be trenches. So, and it's nice to say on this Airfix kit they are very good, and it's even picked out the rivets as well. So it seemed to be just the right amount of oil to thinner. And again, underneath there you can see, hopefully it's not too bold, and that's on a light colour. So it was a really nice blend. So I'm going to go ahead now and keep working these oils in, and then I think we're probably, whether I'll put a bit of a matte coat on here in stages, or whether I'll just kind of, I don't know, I might do it with sanding sticks or buffing or something. But we're not far off. I've got to weather the underside, but I might do that a bit differently. More dust than anything else. And I think we're somewhere near it. So I'll keep plodding away at this, and then hopefully we'll get to the final reveal. and I've used MRP soot, which is great stuff, this exhaust soot. It dries clear but with a matte finish, and it's very very thin, so it takes a lot to build up, but you'll be able to see there that I've just got a bit of exhaust staining beginning. Now it's very very subtle. It's coming across more on the camera than it does in person, because that's something to do with the contrast, I believe, so it's picking it up more. But as you look at it, it's very very subtle. Now I might want to do some I think with oils or possibly pastels, some lighter, a bit of a lighter shade in the centre of it, because I tend to see that you get, I don't know what it is, but there's a bit of deposit from exhaust generally. And I've sprayed it around here. It's so thin, I mean this is about, I don't know, maybe 15 coats to get that kind of definition, so there's a lot to play with, and there's a long way before you go too far, so it's great stuff as far as that's concerned. And then I've got the exhausts here, and I've painted those so these have been painted in a light colour, mainly focusing on the front here. You can see it's a bit lighter. There's a sort of deck tan I think I started with, and then I just went over lightly with the dark brown, which is deck brown, or I can't see what it is here, but XF79, they're both from Tamiya. And then I've gone over the back two here with the exhausts again, quite the exhaust stain from MRP quite a lot. And I think they're starting to get there, so now the next thing is with pastels and possibly oils, then pastels, to try and sort of get some of that burning look that you see on exhaust. So I'll try and pop a picture up of what I'm trying to achieve. I don't know how close we go because I haven't really done exhaust before, but we'll see what we get at the end, and hopefully we can build on that in the future. So that's it for the minute. So I think when we're all done with this, should be into the final reveal. Okay, so here we are. I've just been taking some pictures, so they'll obviously follow this little rundown, but just wanted to sort of give the builder talk down. All the parts are finished now and attached, and I'm pretty much happy with it. I have looked online to find out about antenna wires, and I'm going to ask on one of the groups on Facebook whether or not these had the antenna wires. They certainly didn't have them running from there. It's whether they went from the fuselage to the horizontal stabilizers here. I'm not sure they did, and I've got a picture of this one and I can't see anything, although it's a pretty poor quality picture, so I'll probably leave them off. And I think everything's come together pretty well. This is, again, a good thing. This is, I feel, a step up in a progression, on my last build, so I'm quite happy with some of the techniques I've done. Got little bit of progression with the oil, certainly down here. I'm very happy on the wing root with the wear getting into the cockpit. I do have a couple of decals still that are a little bit silvered, so I will fix them before I start taking this one around to model shows and stuff, and I'll do a few finishing touches. But I think for as far as the video is concerned, this one's complete. And yeah, a build not without its problems. However, they were overcome, and I think, you know, the build was better for it, probably. Certainly not difficult, nor was it easy. It was somewhere in the middle. And again, once you actually got the part for the fuel tank cover down, I mean, it was, you know, plain sailing. That was the worst bit, getting that fettled in and getting the guns in as well, which is obviously something I added, so that was never going to be a perfect fit. I've weathered the underside. It's not quite as good as the top side, but there's the canopy. It's just come off. So yeah, just to finish that, it's all gone together really nicely, and like I said, a little bit trying in places, but I think overall it's come out very nicely. Here you can see the light there is showing quite well with the red coming through. That's quite a nice touch. And the staining on the underside is a little bit, well, I've tried to keep it a bit restrained, but it is a little bit heavy in places, but I didn't really know what to go for down there, to be honest. So I just sort of put the dust on, some streaking and stuff, and I imagine it being in Malta, it's going to be getting a little bit dusty. And I think the restrained chipping, like I've said, really happy with. So all in all, it's been an enjoyable project. So if you followed along and you like what you see, give the video a like, leave a comment down below. I always like to read them, and if not already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.